What's up, Lindas? Today I'm going to be recapping the latest episode of Drag Race Brazil Season 2 Brazilian Girl Groups Battle Royale. Before we begin, I just want to say that one of the nicest compliments I get from you guys is how grateful you are that I recap the international seasons. And honestly, guys, it's my greatest pleasure. I absolutely love the international seasons. I ride harder for them than the US franchise. I love learning about how drag is done all over the world. I love learning about different cultures and languages and perspectives, so please know I get so much joy out of it. The queens walk back into the workroom after Chanel's elimination, and somebody pointed out to me that last week her exit line was something about being able to speak English or being an English teacher, and how that's sort of making her relevant for a Verse the World season in the future. And we see that again at the end of this episode, so I'll touch on that later. Melogy is upset at losing her trans sister, and Poseidon is tired of being in the bottom all the time. Can she turn it around this week? Spoiler alert, she does. So it's a new week in the workroom, and Melogy refuses to accept that she was in the bottom last week. Girl, I love you, but you were in the bottom 3. It wasn't a top placement, and it certainly wasn't a safe placement. The drag delusion strikes again. At that moment, Greg enters the workroom and announces that the library is officially open. The girls read each other down, but it's Melogy who takes the win. She's slaying these mini challenges, having won 3 in a row now. So for this week's Maxi Challenge, the queens are getting into 2 girl groups. They will need to write and record their own verses for their respective teams, plus choreograph their own routines. So as the winner of the mini challenge, Melogy gets to pick her teammates. To Poseidon's surprise, she picks her first. But Ruby Knox calls it out in confessionals, saying Melogy's up to something because she's picking the weaker competitors in order to make herself shine. And if that was her true intentions, we have to respect the hustle. The other team is comprised of 4 very strong personalities that will have to work together in order to succeed. As the queens listen to the tracks, it's clear that the more upbeat song is the favorite, despite it being more physically demanding. Desiree's group get their preference, but not before calling out Melogy's strategy, offending some of the other girls who don't like being seen as backup dancers. They definitely had something to prove this week, and prove it they did. The queens get to run their vocals through Drag Queen, which I love because as the winner of Queen of the Universe, who better to coach them on their singing? Side note, Greg has such a funny, high-pitched cackle. Every time she laughs, so do I. On Elimination Day, Paula Hoffman Van Cartier opens up about a hookup that went very wrong. Her former lover introduced her to prostitution where she worked for many years. She said how tough it was being treated like an object and feeling so worthless. Getting the call for Drag Race Brazil saved her life and gave her some purpose. Thank you for sharing, Paula. You are very brave. Having said that, the vulnerable edit is always very telling of who's probably going to go home. So on the main stage this evening, we have a drag queen looking fabulous. I did not really enjoy her look last week. I've said this before and I'll say it again. She looks really good in black wigs. They just suit her face and she looks amazing here. We also have Duda Bertolini covered in pink hands. We have Bruna Braga, an extra special guest judge, Bielo Pereira. So first up, we have the Sassy Sisters bringing us Batom. And right off the bat, it's a hot mess. Paola's not really lip syncing, either is Melina Blay. And then we have the face crack of the century because Melina goes in for a handstand expecting Desiree to catch her feet, just like they did in rehearsals, but instead she lets go and sort of gets kicked in the face. The judges looked visibly concerned, and it took them a while to compose themselves and get back into the number again. But by that time, the momentum was completely gone. It was so uncomfortable to watch. Next up are the audacious ones. Thankfully, they brought it like nothing else. Every single one of them served. Melogy did not shine over any of her other castmates because they all ate. I also think the song was better. It was catchier with more of a flow. Category is Night of Iconic Voices, and I gave my top 2 to Adora Black. This outfit is referencing Pablo Vittar, and it is so gorgeous. Her legs. She's so stunning, it makes me physically ill. So it's time for the judges' critiques, and of course, the audacious ones are the winning group. However, there can only be one winner, and it goes to Poseidon Drag. I have to agree, she was such a standout with her camp facial expressions, from the bottom to the top. But it's not over though, because Melogie also wins this challenge. And I'm so glad she won because she looked ready to riot. And so the bottoms are the Sassy Sisters. And at that point, I was wondering if Greg would put them all up for elimination and they all had to lip sync, but she didn't. So first up, we have Desiree Beck. They loved her confidence in the group, but they said her look was anything but Anita. They even said it looked more Dracula, and Greg asks her to improve on her makeup. Oof. Melina had a fabulous look, one of my favorites of the week, but she was too visibly shaken by what happened during the performance. She struggled to recover and the lip sync was barely there. Paula gets a similar critique. The runway was Gorgina, but her performance was very low energy. The lip sync and the confidence was not there. And last but not least, we have Ruby Knox, and her runway was gorgeous. It almost made my top 2. And her performance was definitely the strongest in the group. Greg asks them who should be in the bottom. Desiree says Melina and Melina says Desiree, saying she trusted the wrong person. And I just love this picture, by the way. It's one of my favorite things to come out of Drag Race this year. Paula says Melina, and Ruby votes for Desiree, which is unsurprising given their rivalry since episode 1. In Untucked, the mood is tense. Desiree says she did not mean to let Melina fall, but Melina's not having it. She says, we rehearsed it, and every single time we rehearsed it, you didn't let my legs drop. So why now? Desiree is not happy with the implication that she did it on purpose. I actually ran a poll on my YouTube channel saying, do we think Desiree Beck meant to drop Melina's leg? And the majority of you said clear sabotage. In my opinion, I actually don't think she meant to do it, because if she did, she was taking a really big risk that she could have gone home that episode. I'm inclined to believe Desiree, but we will never know, so I guess we just have to speculate. And it definitely made for good drama this week. This was absolutely my favorite episode of Drag Race Brazil Season 2 so far. Back on the main stage, Ruby Knox and Desiree Beck are saved, which means it's down to Melina and Paula to lip sync it out. They perform to The Beginning by RuPaul. Listen, enough with the RuPaul songs. We don't need to be doing this on the international seasons. Melina's very high energy and Paula is pacing herself a little too much. Paula even stops lip syncing at one point, and I'm like, what are we doing, girl? Melina gets to stay, giving us this iconic moment. We say goodbye to Paula Hoffman Van Cartier. And as I mentioned at the beginning of the episode, Paula, like Chanel, also expresses in her exit line that she can speak English and that she hopes to get a call for Verse the World. And I think these international queens are learning how to keep themselves relevant, and that's very, very smart. Because we saw that with Gordland in Thailand Season 3 when her time was up. So my friends, what did you think of this week's episode? Next week is a comedy challenge. I'm excited for more. I absolutely love this episode so much. I want to know all the tea, so give it to me and I'll be back very soon with another video.